Hey guys, CruzArmor in the house. We are wrapping a fuel tank also. This is a full tank kit. So this is our Pro Series kit. So this runs all the way up to the top and then runs around where your jeans would hit. So as always, you want to clean everything with your alcohol mix. Make sure you don't have any oils, greases, waxes on anything. You definitely want to clean even the top areas, stuff above. Wipe down. You don't want any dust migrating into your workspace here. And then also, as you're cleaning with your soap after you've alcoholed it, make sure you get all these crevices where the rubber meets. You just want to make sure that there's no dust, dirt up under those. If it's super clean, sometimes I'll remove the console, lift it up, but the problem is if it has any miles on it, underneath that thing is filthy dirty and you can just make more of a mess. So as long as everything's good and clean on the edges here, it'll turn out perfect. So again, keep everything good and wet. I've already alcoholed that side. This one has the fuel fill on this side, so that side of the kit will have that hole cut out in it. But again, everything good and soapy, your hands soapy. I've used a lint roller on myself, so minimize any of that. What I'm doing right now is just pulling the kit. You want to make sure and spray everything while you're lifting it. Spray the top surface of this kit. Make sure it's good and wet and soapy. You don't want to hang this thing out in the wind. Dry, where everything will just stick to it. So again, I'm washing this really good. You don't want to just lightly spray it. Keep everything wet. Keep this good and wet again. You want all that dirt, any dust, anything that might have landed or migrated in there to not be there. So now what we're going to do, usually what I do is about 3/4 of an inch from the film to the end of the tank here. We're going to start it about there. 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, because what we're going to do is stretch this to get all this out, all these fingers out. So what I'll do is just lay a little alcohol up at the tip, just a little bit, and we're going to remove that in a little bit. And then you just want to line this line up along the tank, but again, this we're just going to anchor up top, just a little bit of alcohol, just right on the nose. That way when we pull this, it's anchored, it's stuck up there, okay? So again, keep everything wet, keep the top wet. I try not to lift it too much on the inside. You know, get a little bit of soap, but you don't want to hold this thing up in the air and where dust and liquid would kind of flow underneath the film. Alcohol, now this is the part. You're basically just taking this bottom little corner where this giant finger is, just getting a little alcohol down there. Washing the soap out, making sure the soap's off the tank, soap's off the film. And now what we're gonna do is, we're literally gonna grab it right there and kind of pull it onto that corner, as you can see. And it's stuck right there, okay? And then we're just gonna squeegee away. We want any of that potential alcohol that's under there away from that, because that'll just lock it down however it is. And so you don't want it to lock down without it being squeegeed, obviously, because then you'll have bubbles. So now what we do is take this little ear, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna pull it that way to remove these two fingers. So a little alcohol there, and then stretch it. Yeah, I got a little soap on my fingers. Make sure your fingers are alcohol too. There we go. And then just stretch it away. Like that. And a couple of these little fingers are okay. Those are going to disappear, like that one. Now the key is you've got alcohol all the way around this, so you really can't chase anything that way. So now start chasing things away from that anchored area, okay? And I'm going to stop using that and go with the squeegee you guys will have. Actually, this is a better choice anyhow, especially on corners. You don't want to scar the material, which these can do. Okay, so now that is all locked down. And that little finger will work out in a little bit. Since it's not one to lay quite down, close. But we'll give it a minute. So now, this is all locked down. This is still soapy, and this is locked down. Problem is when we stretch this down, we can get a little stretch mark up at the top. So as we soap everything back up, we will release this, keep it all good and wet, and keep it tight. You don't want to lift it all up. But now we got more soap under there. Now we're going to alcohol this one more time. Now when we pull this up, put your hand more in the middle, put a little alcohol there if your hand's slipping from the soap. And now when we pull it up, we can put this exactly where we want it. So we got a little bit more stretch going so that these fingers disappeared. And now literally we are pretty much good to go. So now what we're going to do is just run the squeegee in between these anchor points. So this is anchored up here, so we're going to start in the anchor, start working our way down. Working down that edge, making sure your edge is lined up nicely there. Now same thing down here, we kind of want to work our way up, making sure that we're out of that lockdown zone. I can see, that's just from my squeegee. The yellow squeegee left a little. So yeah, you don't even want to know about the yellow squeegee. If you're not careful, you can scar the material. When you have a big bubble like that, we don't want it to run down into this, so I just lifted this a little. We're going to give it a little escape route. So again, anchored at both ends, soaked it, worked everything kind of together, and then out. So again, keep everything wet on top. If you get any of these wrinkles like we were seeing right there, pull them so that when you're squeegeeing it, you don't trip over yourself and double it over. So give it just a little tension. In overlapping strokes. Always start where you know you've laid it down so that you don't accidentally leave a big fat bubble in the middle somewhere. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, these couple little fingers up here, I'm just going to put a little alcohol there so that when we squeegee that, they'll stay down. And that alcohol washes out the soap, makes that adhesive tacky again. Now I'm just running those last little fingers out. Okay, so that's done. Now literally all we have is this little piece down here. But you always want to make sure there's nothing trapped back up in there, so give it a good look, because we're going to alcohol this down so you don't want to trap anything. Looks good. So now what we'll do is start here with a little alcohol. Basically, I'm just going to grab this and just give it a little tension this way, because we have room to pull this whole thing kind of this way, but I'm going to do a little bit right there, which will help me remove any of those little fingers. Okay. I'm going to lift it, just get a little more soap back up in there so it slides nice. And put a little alcohol on the tip. Just a little under that edge. So now when I pull this, you see all that kind of disappears. So I'm pulling it, just gonna keep working everything out. I see there's something got in there, so which is fine. So there's some little piece of debris under there. So what I'm gonna do is lift it back to that point. If you need to use the back of this to kind of wash it out, that's fine. Don't use your fingernail, you might scar the material. And then again, wash it, make sure it's whatever you got out is on the floor now. Don't just move it a little bit. So now we're gonna redo that. We're gonna put a little alcohol. If your fingers are slippy, make sure you have alcohol on your fingers so that you can get a good grip. And now we're just gonna, again, work everything kind of out. You still have soap underneath here, only alcohol on the tip. Because if you were to alcohol this whole area, sometimes you'll get locked in little air pockets. Because again, that alcohol makes the adhesive locked down. So if it locks down without you squeegeeing it, it'll trap whatever's in there. Liquid, air, you name it, even dust. The soap, what it does is actually makes a kind of a wave underneath of soapy liquid. So when you're squeegeeing it, it'll kind of wash out whatever's in there. And then just run over it, make sure you're looking at it, making sure you don't see any air pockets, any little debris, dog hairs, you name it. So this thing looks pretty good. I don't want to get in the way. I would typically be looking at it more in this direction so I could see better, but I don't want to block your view here, but I think we're good. Now anywhere these little fingers might exist, hit them with some alcohol. If you need to have a harder press, you can use the back end of your blade to help push out whatever, but also a dry towel. If you have a dry towel handy, you can use this also kind of as a squeegee. Because what's happening if you squeegee it is trying to draw liquid back in, and that'll lift the finger. So as you see, when we press that down with the dry towel, those things just disappear. Hit them once with the squeegee, and if they're not staying down, yeah, again. And you don't ever want to come up against the film the wrong way, because then you could lift, roll up, and then you got white or yellow fuzz or whatever color your microfibers. You'll get some of those fuzzes up underneath, and then you're going to have to clean that out. If you ever get a finger that's not laying down, what you can do is, again, alcohol, and make it a little bit of a bigger finger, wider finger, so to speak, because you want to, again, you want to split that finger into multiple little fingers and kind of work them one way or the other. There we go. Now, we're going to also put a little light heat gun to this in a sec, and those will completely lay down. But anywhere you have one that's just small, if you make it a little bit wider and make it into two smaller ones,